You guys can hear me now. I may have had a little technical issue there for a second, so we'll see if that's any better. But so I was asking if you guys had any book-related questions, and I also said that, okay, good deal. So I had a little issue, obviously. I think I know what I did. Sorry about that. So if you've been listening to no sound for the first, ooh, heavens, 3 minutes, I do apologize. That was my fault. I had the little speaker thing plugged in, but I didn't have my speaker turned on. So that is going to be my fault. I need to remember to check that next time. So as you guys know, I do a weekly podcast with Megan Smith, who also happens to be my co-writer for Finders Keepers, which will be out next week. And so I have a little microphone that we use when we do the podcast, and I typically leave it plugged in, but you also have to turn on the microphone, right? So anyway, so that was the issue. So I was asking you guys, what have been your favorite book reads of 2019? Okay, so it doesn't have to be a book that just came out this year, just a book that you happen to read this year. It could be a classic. I'd love to hear what those are. So put that in the comments, even if you're watching later. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to know why you liked it too, why it was your favorite, and also what books you're looking forward to in 2020. Okay, so those are the questions that I've already asked, and you can drop those in the comments at any time. And I also gave you a little bit of a tease that I will have another question for specific recommendations from you guys a little later in the show. And there's a reason for that. There's a certain type of book that I will be reading next year for a very special reason. So I'll share that in just a few minutes. All right. So also, if you guys have any book-related questions, it could be about my books. It could be about books in general. It could be about writing, whatever. Go ahead and drop those in the comments. And if you are watching later, I will find your comments later and I'll answer them then. So you don't have to watch it live, which is the great thing about technology, right? Okay, so here are a couple of things that I thought that I would just share a few little thoughts for you guys for next year. So I'm already quite busy making plans for 2020. I have, as you guys know, Any Good Thing has been out since September. That's this one right here. Okay, so this has been out since September. Next week, December 10th, Finders Keepers, a practical approach to find and keep your writing critique partner will be out. So that is December 10th. And that book launches. Megan Smith and I wrote that book together. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, she is my co-host for QWERTY Writing Life podcast, our weekly podcast. And we have a really interesting episode that we just launched. It will be, you should be able to find it on all podcast portals tomorrow and on YouTube. And what we decided to do with this one is a little something different. It's actually what we call a creative workshop episode. So the whole episode, you will actually get to watch us work as critique partners. We worked through the book description for Finders Keepers. And we did that with the video rolling. And Megan is amazing, and she did all the editing and she narrowed it down as much as possible. But I mean, you basically are getting to see how we work through words, how we take every single word and weigh it, decide if it's the best word to fit what we are trying to convey. And the book description for a book, it's that little bit that goes on the back cover of a book. Turns out those things are pretty doggone hard to write. So you'll get a firsthand look at us pulling all of that together. So I hope it'll be an interesting episode. I think it's kind of interesting. So it is like an hour long, even after all of her cutting. So it might be one of those that you want to just kind of flip through a little bit, just kind of get some glimpses of the process. So anyway, that should be up by the time you're watching this. It may already be up on some of your portals, or definitely by tomorrow. So in 2020, what we're doing looking forward to that year is in February, I will have a novella that will be out. It's called Plus 1 Year More, and it is related to Any Good Thing. Okay, so if you guys have read this, you might remember Ben and his daughter Rachel. Okay, they will feature in Plus 1 Year More, but you do not have to have read Any Good Thing. Plus 1 Year More occurs before the events in Any Good Thing. And like I said, you don't have to read one to be able to read the other. They do stand alone from each other. But in addition to Ben and Rachel, you will also meet Carolina, who is Ben's wife, Rachel's mom. And you heard about her in Any Good Thing. No spoilers if you have not read it. But this novella will be her final year on Earth. And so it is, if you can believe it, it'll actually be a little bit more of a tearjerker than Any Good Thing. I know a lot of people had to have tissues as they read Any Good Thing. You will need those again. I'll just go ahead and forewarn you. But I hope that it is a book that will bring hope and comfort to people as well. So, and it's a novella, so it's a little bit shorter. It's not going to be this thick. All right, it'll be a lot smaller than that. But I hope packed with just as big of a story as Any Good Thing. And then in the fall, I'll have a collection of short stories that also come from Any Good Thing. It will be a lot of kind of the smaller characters from the book. It'll be their stories kind of brought to life and brought out a bit, so you'll know a little bit more behind those characters. Several of the stories are already written. Some of them just need to be fleshed out a little bit. Others I haven't written yet, but I kind of know what's happening there. So that will be out next fall is the plan. And with Finders Keepers, so we decided that we wanted to start this author resource series. So all of these books in this series, you don't have to read them in any kind of order. They're just different topics that May and I have found were not really available. The whole reason we wrote Finders Keepers was a few years ago when we wanted to be critique partners for one another, we had no idea how to do that. And when we really started searching, we would find little bits and pieces here and there, but we kind of had to pull everything together from just an article here and there, blog post here and there. There wasn't a book that we could find when we got started that kind of explained the whole process and how it works. So that's why we wrote Finders Keepers. So that is kind of the thought process behind all of the books that will be in this series. We're trying to kind of fill in some of those informational gaps on things that maybe there's not a full resource like a book for. So originally we were thinking, okay, maybe one book a year kind of thing. But what we've decided to do is next year, instead of putting out another book in the series, which, could still happen, but for the time being, we're not planning on that. But what we are planning is to release the audiobook version for Finders Keepers, because most writers don't have a ton of time and are able to really bring in a lot more information by listening to it. So audiobooks have become a much more popular format, especially for busy writers. So that will be in the works next year for sure, on that angle, on the nonfiction side of Logos and Mythos Press. So we'll have the novella in February, we'll have short story collection in the fall, and we'll have the audiobook at some point in there. We also have a couple of other things that are kind of in the works, but I'm not going to say any more about those. You'll just have to be surprised next year. But I do have one other thing, and this brings me back to how I said I would have a very specific request for recommendations for you guys. All right, so as you know, I've been working on a fantasy series. Last fall, my short story, A Liberal Awakened, appeared in the Crux Anthology, which if you are still doing some holiday shopping, that would make a perfect gift for anyone on your list who loves sci-fi or fantasy, because it has 16 short stories that are either sci-fi or fantasy. That contain a lot of adventure, They're all PG-13 or below, so most of the stories in there would be appropriate for even for teenagers. My short story, my son read when he was 8 years old. Now he happens to love Tolkien and Lewis and Rowling and things like that, so it was kind of right up his alley. But that would be a really good book for a lot of people on your list. Plus, an added bonus, all profits for that anthology go to Compassion International. So not only are you going to get to read 16 international authors who are fabulous, but you will be kind of giving back. And so I think that that's pretty cool. So my short story first appeared there, and since that time I have written some more short stories set in the same world or in kind of a neighboring world, I think is how I'll call it right now. And those are all available on my website, and you can read those anytime. So I've been working on this whole world of mine, but next year is when I get to really focus on it. I'm going to begin outlining all of my whole series in the summer. Okay, so I'll be working through that, thinking through some of the details of what the stories will encompass and where it will go, which I already kind of know, but I'll be fleshing out a lot more at that time. So once I have my good solid outline and all of that kind of stuff, I will actually begin writing the series next year. And I'm very excited about that. I cannot wait. So here's my request. Request for recommendations of good fantasy books, specifically either epic fantasy or high fantasy. Now, the thing about writing that I both love and loathe is you find different definitions for the same things wherever you look. So as I've been looking for how would I really categorize what I'm planning on writing, I've found mixed messages on the definitions for epic fantasy and high fantasy. So simply based on the research that I've done, I feel like I'm kind of writing a hybrid that's both epic and high fantasy. So we'll kind of see what really plays out when I get down to it and research that a little bit more. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for books like that you guys would recommend, because next year I'm going to be reading a lot of fantasy, probably mostly fantasy next year, just kind of getting my head in that realm, so to speak. So anyway, that is 2020. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm planning. And if you guys, I would love, if you guys are watching this later, like I said, I want to know what the best book was that you read in 2019. I want to know what book you're most looking forward to in 2020. And I'd love to know why for both of those, just out of curiosity, what you liked about the books that you read and what it is that you're looking forward to. If it's an author you've been following for a while, or what it is about the book that you're excited about. And then also, if you do have a specific fantasy recommendation that either kind of falls along those epic fantasy or high fantasy, a lot of adventure, a lot of, characters and creatures and worlds and all of that kind of stuff, that's what I'm looking for. So I look forward to hearing your recommendations, and I want to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, because the next time I see you guys, it will be in 2020. So have a great holiday season. Bye.